Okay, so I recently published a video on Cursor 2.0 explaining how the new multi-agent interface works. Someone commented on that video. Nitesh said, I would like to see one agent implement and then another agent review. So that's what we're going to look at in this video. As you can see on screen, I've set up a multi-agent workspace here with different agents for planning, reviewing, and building. We're going to run through the process of how you can use different agents and different models for each step in the process, and how using this to iterate along the way can help you get better results. So for this test, we're going to ask the models to review and analyze an existing code base and then create a new landing page based on the content that they see within the existing website. So what we can do is open up the browser in Cursor so we can have a look at the existing website. So to do that, we can hit Control-Shift-P. That's going to bring up Command Palette. If we then type in browser, we can see an option will come up, Cursor Open Browser. If we click on that, that's going to open up the browser panel here in our IDE. And then a cool feature here within Cursor, we can open up a live website. In this case, snapperai.io is my website and the project that we're going to be working on. We can hit enter and now we have a view of the live website within our IDE, so we can have a look at what we're going to be working with. So just for context on what we're going to be working on in this video using this multi-agent workflow, I'll expand the browser a bit so you can see the menu navigation a bit more. We can see there are 5 links here for prompt templates that you can download, and I'm adding more as we go, so it's getting to a point where there's too many of these links on the menu navigation. It's getting a bit too busy, so we need to condense that. So what I'm going to ask the agent to do is plan for a new templates hub. So I want a new landing page for all of the templates to live, and then that needs to be a drop-down menu navigation. So we should have 3 templates here instead, which you can hover over to show a drop-down box with all of the different prompt templates that you can download. That's the task I'm going to provide the agents in this workflow, and we'll use the planner to first plan out the implementation plan of how that will work. We'll then review the plan using the review agent to just make sure that there's nothing that we can improve. And then we'll ask one of the build agents to build it, and then we'll review again. So that's going to be the use case for this video. And I have prepared a prompt already, so we will close this browser a little bit. I'll open up the plan agent here. So again, this is just our Claude Sonnet 4.5 in plan mode. That will now plan this implementation for us without writing any code yet. You can see the prompt we are going to provide is you are the planner, create a concise high signal implementation plan for adding a free templates hub to the snapperai.io website. The use case, my header currently shows 5 separate template download links. It's getting busy. I want a new hub page that showcases all templates that drives clicks to the existing template pages. Nav should show a free templates menu item with a drop-down listing those 5 existing template pages, maximize clarity, brand consistency, and higher CTR. And then we've just got deliverables of what we want it to provide, which is essentially just an overview of the plan of how this will work. So we'll hit enter and we will let Claude in plan mode work on this task. One piece of advice, asking it to create a concise plan is a good idea, especially if you're working on big projects. Otherwise, Claude can be very verbose and write really long, detailed implementation plans. Often I find that a more concise plan is better. It's easier to review and get to a better point where you're happy and ready to build, rather than a really long-winded, detailed implementation plan. Sometimes that's okay, but a lot of the time I feel like a concise plan is often better. So we can see it has now finished. It's created this plan in plan mode. If we extend this window, we can see the implementation plan that's been created. We've got file and routing changes it's identified. So again, it has obviously analyze the entire existing code base to understand what it needs to change. We've got templates nav drop down as a component that it's going to build. We've got files to modify, so we're going to replace the 5 individual nav links with a templates nav drop down component. Component strategy. We've got a data strategy as well for each of the template downloads. It's got UX decisions for higher click-through rate, hub page optimizations, nav drop-down enhancements, copy strategy. It's written some copy already for us, so free AI development templates is the suggested headline. We've got some SEO and meta optimizations as well. Performance considerations. It's got some open questions here as well that we might have to respond to. Should the hub include an email capture form at the bottom? Get all 5 templates, no to that. it's already recommended a response. So we can see there's quite a lot here. So even though I did say concise, it's still a pretty detailed implementation plan, which again is why I recommend using that in your prompt, because otherwise this could have been a lot more detailed. What I'll do next is I'll ask Claude to now write this implementation plan to the root of our project directory. If you're in plan mode and using Sonnet 4.5, it will create this plan in plan mode, which means there's not an actual file written to your project directory with this content. So we need to actually do that once we're happy with it. So I'll say write this plan to the project root. So then we will have an existing file in the project directory that we can then reference when we are prompting Codex to review it. We've now flicked over to our review agent, which is using GPT-5 Codex. And what we can do is now reference the file that's been created. We can see on the right-hand side here, Claude wrote the plan to freetemplates.hubplan.md. So we can say to Codex now, review free templates. If we start typing, that will bring up the file and provide feedback and opportunities for improvement. So we'll send that through now to Codex, and it will review Claude's plan and provide feedback. So this is a good workflow again for iteration. I used to do this with two separate windows, Claude in one window and ChatGPT in another window, and then I would just copy paste responses across. But now, thanks to Cursor, we can just build agents with these different models within our IDE, and we don't have to leave Cursor. We can just flick to the other agent, and then we're in a conversation with our other model, and we can just tag the files that have been created and ask each model to review. So it's a really powerful workflow now within Cursor. The Codex has responded. It's reviewed the implementation plan and provided some feedback on the key sections in the plan. It's finished the response by saying, overall the plan is strong. The main improvements are tightening type definitions, clarifying component interactions, and detailing SEO analytics implementation so execution stays consistent. I can respond now to Codex and say, I don't care about analytics. I don't want to implement that for just this build. Please apply this and your other feedback to the plan.md file. So we can now instruct Codex to update the plan with its feedback. Therefore, we've got the plan initially that Claude provided. Codex has reviewed it, offered some feedback. Now we're going to ask Codex to jump in and make those changes. And we can even then throw another task into the workflow by going back to Claude saying, hey, I've updated the plan. Can you now just double check, see what updates I've made, give me your feedback. Then that iteration process, you can go back and forth with different models until you get to a point where you've got a really robust plan that's been through different agents to get to a point where you're ready to build. So we've accepted changes and we'll do that. We'll go back to Claude. I'm going to say I've made changes to the plan, and we can tag it again just so there's no confusion. Can you review the changes I've made and give feedback? So again, we're just iterating again. Claude obviously wrote that initial plan, so now that we've updated it, we want to get Claude's opinion on what we've done to see if there's anything maybe we've missed or something we haven't considered as part of that review process when we've used Codex. So Claude has responded, and we can see it says these changes transform the plan from a good starting point into a production-ready specification. You've added type safety, performance considerations, governance practices, accessibility specifics, and implementation gotchas that would have been discovered during coding. The plan is now at a level where a developer could implement it with minimal questions or refactoring. The only thing I'd add is maybe a section on analytics data layer structure for the tracking attributes mentioned in to-do number 9, but that's a nice to have rather than essential. As mentioned, I'm not too worried about analytics for this stage. So again, that's a good example with this feedback of how we've used that plan and review workflow to get to a point where we're now production ready. The initial plan that Claude created was good, but it was just a starting point, and using Codex, another model, another perspective to review it and offer feedback is a really good way to then improve it and update it. And as Claude has now said upon its review, get to a point where we are production ready. So that's what we'll do now. We've got two build agents created here. One is a fast build, which uses the Composer model, which is Cursor's new model. It's extremely fast when it builds. The other option we've got is Codex, which is a slower build. If you use GPT-5 Codex High, it usually takes longer. I recently did a video on a speed test of these agents. I'll link that in this video in the top corner and in the description below. Composer in that test took 1 minute and 45 seconds compared to Codex, which took 26 minutes to implement the app that I asked both models to build. That's just an example of the strengths, I guess, and weaknesses of both models. If you're looking to build fast and iterate, then Composer's a good one to use. If you're not too worried about how long a task is going to take, you want to just give it something to build and then walk away, you can use Codex, because often, despite taking a lot longer to do the build, you usually get a better quality output. Because this is a pretty straightforward, simple build, we're going to use Composer in this video. We've got Codex there obviously as a backup if we run into issues, but we've also got our review Codex agent. So we can ask Composer to build the files from the implementation plan. Then we can go back to our review agent Codex and ask it to review the work Composer's done. So rather than asking Codex to do the long build, we can use Composer and then just have Codex review agent there as sort of a guardrail to just review the work and make sure that it's okay before we test or push to Git. So we'll do that now. We can jump over to Fast Build Composer here and we can say implement the plan and then tag the document. Hit enter. That should be enough context now for Composer to read this file, understand the requirements, and then build our new templates hub. So we'll allow it to work. It won't take too long because, as I mentioned, this is a fast working model. Then we'll be able to ask Codex to review the code it writes. Then we'll jump into dev mode and just test to see what it has created. So we'll let Composer work here. We can see it's created a to-do list and it's working through that now rather quickly. It's got 7 to-dos. And as we can see, it's powering through them. It's already done 5 out of the 7, so it's not going to take long at all. It's probably going to be, again, under 90 seconds to complete the build, which is a lot quicker than what you would get with almost any other model that you can use here within Cursor. So Composer has finished the build now. We can see the files that have been edited. What we can do now is, if we locate this button here in the bottom right of the chat window, which says copy message, we can click on that. Then we can jump back over to our review agent. Again, this is Codex. And we can say, I've just implemented this plan, and then tag the file, then say, please review Composer's work and give your feedback. Here is Composer's response, and then we can paste that full message that we copied across. That's going to give Codex the full context of exactly what Composer did when we asked it to build the plan. So this is that guardrail that I talked about. Codex can now review the work that Composer's done and offer some feedback to see if there's any mistakes it's made or potential things it's overlooked in the build phase. Therefore, we can sort of identify potential problems before we move into testing. Again, this is just another good step in the process of iteration to make sure that you are checking the work that these models do before you move on. So we can see Codex has responded with some feedback. It's got some high priority issues. Mobile drop-down can't be opened in the mobile nav is the key issue it's identified. It's then referenced the exact code that it's referring to. We've then got a medium priority issue. Desktop drop-down still requires a click instead of honouring the hover interaction called for in the plan. We've then got the code it's referencing there. A low priority issue, unused import in the new hub page trips lint. Finally, an open question. Once the wrapper handlers are removed, we will still need a way to close the parent mobile nav after navigation. Do we want to pass a callback prop for that, or should the parent handle it in another way? And summary, main blocker is the mobile drop-down wrapper that closes the menu immediately. Fix that first, then add hover support on desktop to match the spec and clean up the stray import. So we've got a really good review here from Codex. It's identified some issues already from that build. So as an example, Composer is a very quick model, but then we've got Codex here as a fallback to just double check and see if there's any issues. You can just use Codex to build as well and then have a review agent in a separate window using Codex and just ask that to review also. So you can have Codex operating in 2 different windows with 2 different sets of context and still reviewing and providing feedback on the code you write. In this case, I'm going to ask Codex to update the code based on your feedback and choose the best solution for the open question issue. So we'll now ask Codex to make fixes to the code that Composer has created. This is going to save us time, because if we had have just relied on Composer and then gone into dev mode to test, we would have identified some of these issues and then had to come back into Cursor and maybe prompt Composer to fix them if we were just using that single agent workflow. Because we've got a multi-agent setup here, we can just use Codex to first review before we even go into dev mode, which is going to save us a few rounds of iteration and improvements because Codex is doing that work for us before we actually test. So again, as Nitesh mentioned in his comment on YouTube, we've got multiple agents here for review stages, which is really powerful for that iteration and review process for whatever project you're working on. So Codex has finished making the changes. Next steps, it's saying to now go into testing. So what we can do is accept all changes that it's made. We'll now jump over to dev mode and test to see if the implementation is working correctly. Okay, so we're in dev mode here now. We can see our menu has changed. We've got the free templates drop down. If we hover over that, it does come up, and then we've got all of the different template packs available here. Eliza OS templates, PRD templates. We've then got a view all templates button. Let's just first click on PRD templates. That does work and take us to the PRD templates page. So that's working correctly. We can now hover over and click on view all templates. We'll see if that then takes us to the new page, and it does. So we can see here we've got free AI development templates as the heading, production ready templates for Eliza OS, PRDs, Codex and more, all free. And then we've got sections here for each template. Let's say, for example, the PRD one. If we click PRDs, that just takes us through to that page. So it has implemented what we've asked from the plan. We could make some changes if we wanted to, just to change this slightly to have some more information about each template pack, but that's pretty good in terms of the prompt and the workflow we've gone through to plan the implementation and then execute. The iteration process has been effective in this case for getting the plan to a point where we were able to execute and implement this essentially with one prompt. And then Codex at that review stage to review the work that Composer did was really important as well, because it picked up on a few bugs that we would have identified had we just jumped over and tested straight away. So that's a look at this multi-agent workflow and how using a review agent to iterate along the way is a really powerful way to improve your output and avoid issues and save a lot of time, because you can identify issues early and get your plans and your coding to a better point before you go into test mode. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and found it valuable. If you do plan on using a similar workflow, let me know in the comments below how you're using the multi-agent workflow and the plan review process within Cursor. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe, and thanks for watching.